in the Situation Room, I've got Henare and Bryce Edwards with me. Well, Michael Woodhouse there talking about how many national MPs would lose their jobs. All of the New Zealand First MPs will lose their jobs on these numbers. Henare, you were there in 93. You won Northern Māori at the time. Then you were a minister in the glory days. New Zealand First had 17 MPs, 13% of the vote. You were Minister of Māori Affairs. Wow, it was all going. What are your thoughts to reflect tonight? Because it's a big deal, isn't it?
Yeah, it is. And I think, say what you're all about, WP, Winston Peters. He's the one that gave me my shot. So first off, thank you, Winston. Secondly, this guy's been in Parliament for nearly 40 years. And let that just sink in for a little bit.
Longer than the Prime Minister's been alive.
That's right. I met Winston when I was 18. I just turned 60. And he was an MP when I was 18. 10, 13 years before even I became an MP. This guy needs and deserves, I believe, deserves a gong.
He'll never take it.
Well, he may not take it.
Sir Winston Peters has a certain ring to it, doesn't it?
He should be offered it, regardless of what we think of him. 40 years of a person's life, and he's 74?
He's 75. He was born
75.
in the last year of the Second World War. At 45. He's 75 years old.
That's absolutely amazing. And, anywhere else in the world, he would be feted. And we don't do that to him. And like I said, I don't agree with.
Do you think that? Do you think he could be offered an ambassador role to Washington or something along those lines? I mean, a lot of people have criticised him, but believe that he was a credible foreign minister. Would he have something to offer as an ambassador?
Oh, I think so. I think he thrives in that international scene. But let's put it all into context. He actually could have been the Prime Minister, could have been the leader of the National Party if they hadn't done the dirty on him many years ago.
Do they have a future after Winston?
No, because New Zealand First has always been about Winston and Winston first, and I knew that, and everybody else knows that. Look at Shane tonight. Only Winston talks on behalf of Winston Peters, and it's that. He has mana. And I'd like to say this to Winston.
Yes.
Kia ora, talofa, whatever. Thanks, bro, for what you did for me personally, and also for what you've actually done for New Zealand. The racing industry love him.
Yeah. I've got a few papers on my desk I could go and grab. I got some down in the basement of the building as well. Bryce, what hold does removing New Zealand First take or leave in New Zealand politics in terms of the context there? You've had this party that's been able to hold that centre ground, it's been able to use that leverage, it's been able to suck up some of the populist vote and use it, and now that's gone. What does it mean?
That's right. This is a significant moment, and of course they've lost before. This is their second time back. They had a second chance at reviving the party. They've failed, and tonight we're seeing a Deputy Prime Minister out of power. So that's a pretty big issue. I'm not sure we've ever seen one in New Zealand lose power, a Deputy Prime Minister. And so here it's happening. It's almost like a footnote in tonight's affairs.
I know, and I'm even going to have to interrupt you now. We're going. I think we're going to national, are we, Lisa?
Fine, we're going to go to Chen Leo. Chen, Leo, outside the Sky City, where Judith Collins might be moving. What's happening?
So she has just left in a car. She didn't stop for journalists at all. She arrived here with her husband and son, and she stayed here for a little bit more than an hour. And journalists were treated with pizza and chips, but she didn't get off the car and talk to us at all. So she has just driven away.
Chen, Leo, thank you very much.
Heading to the New Zealand Royal Squadron.
Sure. Leo, thank you very much for that. That is interesting because that suggests that we're not too far away from hearing from Judith Collins. So we understand she's not going to take questions from the media tonight. Yeah. It'll just be a speech, it appears. Let's go back to the Situation Room. Guyon. Yeah,
we're going to stick, Corin, with Winston Peters. It's a big story. This man has been part of 4 governments over the years.
And sacked by 3 of them.
Yes, that's right. that's
But
right.
it is something of an anticlimax. I mean, we just saw that speech from Peters. It was very short. He didn't say much. And he likes talking, so it was a bit surprising. But yes, it does leave kind of a big gap in that centre of the political spectrum. And globally at the moment, populism's on the rise, yet we don't seem to have it reflecting in New Zealand. And I think when they write those political obituaries from tomorrow about Winston Peters, New Zealand First, it will be about the role he played in, sort of fostering, channeling that populism, that anti-establishment feeling, but bringing it into the system, going into government and doing nothing with that anti-immigration, etc.
Yes, I get that argument that people say, it was quite good because he soaked up that that vote and then didn't do much with it. I'm not totally convinced about that myself. But anyway, that's possibly for another day. But I guess it also occurs to me that he was the one who played the MMP game. He understood that far earlier. He always, if you look back to 96 when Tau Henare came in, a lot of people thought he was going to go with Labour.
93, actually.
You came in 93, you came into government in 96, right, with our first MMP. I'll just tell you your own history here.
That's right.
Yeah. Have
you got a copy of my book already?
No, it's really. I haven't made my way through Judith Collins' book yet, mate. I was looking for some reference to her Christianity in it. Can I say that? Did I say that out loud? But if you look at Winston, he was the one who leveraged MMP, and none of these other parties are going to quite play the game like that, are they?
I don't think so. I mean, he's been that kingmaker in what those crucial changes of government. But he's also been a Māori politician. And he's been a very significant one. And at times, the New Zealand First Party was essentially an early version of the Māori Party, wasn't it?
Yeah.
Getting those 5 Māori seats in 96. And of course, he's being replaced now as Deputy Prime Minister. You think it's going to be Kelvin Davis?
I think it's going to be I think it has to be Kelvin Davis, unless, of course, Kelvin Davis says, I don't really want it, and then it'll go to somebody else.
Like Grant Robertson.
So you guys don't see it being James Shaw or Marama Davidson in a proper coalition?
Why would it be?
I don't think the Greens are going to have much negotiating, sort of strength to demand those sort of positions. And I'm not even sure the Greens want it. It's not a good look for their supporters to take those baubles. They'll want some policy payoffs, whereas I think Grant Robertson needs to be that Deputy Prime Minister. He's got this.
Well, there's some precedent there, wasn't there? Because in the Clark government, 99 to 02, it was Jim Anderton. When Jim Anderton's party fell away, the job of deputy went to Michael Cullen.
That's right.
And so the Robertson Finance Minister with Prime Minister seems to be the duo that
I think this also would be setting up Robertson to take over from Ardern at some stage. He's clearly the success story from this last government, in terms of perceptions, his reputation. And if Ardern doesn't, actually do this whole term for whatever reason, he would be the one that would step in and be Prime
Do you see
Minister.
some prospect of that?
Oh, absolutely.
I can't see.
Of her not doing the term?
Oh, absolutely. I mean, she'd be very wise to go out before her career declines. I mean, imagine going out after winning this spectacular victory.
Well, she hasn't done anything yet.
Well, maybe that's the case, but she's popular, and like John Key, go out before you start being turfed out of office.
I think she did say in the last debate that she would do the full
that's what
term.
Politicians always have to say in these debates.
Do some of them not tell the whole truth all the time?
See, tonight, I liken it to what happened on Game of Thrones. It's the red wedding.
Blue wedding?
It is the blue wedding.
Blue bloodbath?
That's the blue bloodbath, yeah. But there's
where are you going with this Game of Thrones thing, mate?
Where I'm going with it is that we've seen the demise of New Zealand First. Where I'm going with it, we've also seen the demise of the National Party and the rise of what I think is a worrying piece of politics in New Zealand. Nearly 10, I think it is 10 MPs from ACT, and you just heard one of the people that is coming in, basically saying we want guns. That's what she said. So thank you, you silly people.
They're going to be a very marginal force, though.
Oh, well, they may be a marginal force, but when you've got 10 people in the House, you've got 10 people who are capable of speaking in the general debate.
It'll be interesting to see how united ACT are, and I think they're going to fragment.
$2 or $3 million a year just on that party, for God's sake. Thanks, New Zealand.
Okay, well, let's look at the bigger picture. Labor on these numbers can govern alone, and if you're just tuning in and want the basic numbers, with what is it, 56% of the vote counted, Labor sitting on 49.5 with 65 seats. So they've got nowhere to hide now. There are no excuses.
That's right.
The handbrake in the car is gone. It's only the accelerator that they have.
I'm expecting a deal on Ihumato in the next couple of weeks.
Are you?
Absolutely. And why wouldn't you? You've got 66 seats, for goodness sake.
They don't want to burn that political capital.
Well, what?
Ardern never does. So we're going to have the most powerful government we've seen in a lot of modern political history in New Zealand.
We've got unbridled power is what we've got.
We
don't we?
have.
What you've got
Will
is
they use it for good or bad? Will they use it for progressive causes? Will they do the transformational things? Probably not. And the question will be on the Greens. Do the Greens join that, or do they, and go into the tent and try and change things from within, or do they stay on the outside and push them?
And how hemmed in are they by what they've promised already? So the top tax rate is only 39% over $180,000. The fiscal track is kind of wedded in to where it's going to be. Do you think that with this sort of mandate, they've got the mandate to do things that they haven't told us about? Would you like to see that?
Oh, look, I'd hate for them to start off by saying we're going to go into a term of austerity because, we've got a lot of debts to pay. Well, if they do that, see you later in 2023. She's all on.
These things can change quite quickly, can't they? I mean, Labour was at 25, where National is in 2014.
Yeah.
They rebuilt, under Jacinda Ardern. It was the last throw of the dice, but they got into government. So, there is a chance for National to rebuild, right?
Oh, look, there's always an opportunity for the big parties, not so much the small parties.
But the problem with National in this situation is they haven't just lost the party vote, which is what Labour did back in those elections. They've lost the electorate vote. So it's the two ticks problem, that they've actually lost those centre or even centre-right supporters in both the votes. And it's very hard for them to build when they've lost that
What about
heartland.
Leadership then?
Where do you go?
I mean, Judith Collins presumably for the rest for what's left of 2020, right? While the dust settles, and then you've got to be looking, aren't you, in February next year?
There's no obvious answers. I mean, do they bring back Simon Bridges? I think that's one of the obvious options they'll be looking at, as at least someone to just give that stability. I don't think Judith Collins can give that stability to the party when she's presided over such a disaster, and the knives will be out for her. At least if Simon Bridges comes back, he might be seen as sort of a caretaker.
But when you talk about the National Party, where does it go in terms of leadership? You also talk about where does the National Party go in terms of the board. It's a stale old board. And so when we got turfed out, we came back with Key. There was a constitutional review of the party.
Yes.
That's what they need to do.
Yes.
Start straight away tomorrow.
Yes. And Peter Goodfellow...
he should be gone anyway. He's ruled over the debacle of Jamie Lee Ross, for God's sake.
Yeah, and just to remind listeners and viewers, I mean, how long were you an MP for National? 6 years, was it?
9 years.
9 years, okay. So you've worked with all these guys.
Yeah. And now I will be welcoming them, a lot of them, down at the unemployment office. Yep.
Do you think that it is time for President Goodfellow to go?
Well, of course it is. But that won't happen, tomorrow. But it should happen in the new year. And that's how you rebuild the party. You don't just leave it to the people that took you to your worst defeat since Bill English.
But the problem is for National is ideologically they've been outmanoeuvred by Labour, they've hugged the centre ground so much, and National really have to move back into that centre ground, but there's nothing there for them.
Labour are now the most powerful centre party for the last 80 years.
And if you just look, just as we're speaking, and this doesn't really interrupt the flow of what we're saying, Rangitata, what had been a safe National seat, you look there, Joe Luxton, I think we can call this, I was going to be cautious, 97% returned there. And Joe Luxton, the Labour Party candidate, is the thick end of 3,000 votes ahead there. So that's just pretty much the story of the night. The story of the night.